You are in a deep sleep. Then the silence ruptures. It is 3 a.m. Your eyes lock onto the dark as a flood of uncontrollable thoughts begins to pour in. You are lying in a soft bed. The room is quiet. The doors are locked. Physically, you are safe, yet your nervous system is sounding a high-alert panic signal. We often write this off as a personality trait, ignoring the fact that the mind has undergone a total involuntary hijacking. In this moment, the most immediate threat to your safety sits behind your eyes. The seeds for this midnight panic were planted hours ago in mundane moments. An unreturned text message, an awkward pause in a conversation, a slight shift in a coworker's tone, or a minor error enters your brain where it is rapidly reinterpreted as evidence of impending ruin. This diagram shows the mechanism of the spiral. A single social micro-event branches out into massive, catastrophic future timelines. This expanding web represents the labyrinth of what-ifs, trapping the mind in complex disaster scenarios that have no basis in reality. This is the core tragedy of overthinking. You are sacrificing the peace of the present moment to suffer through problems that haven't even happened. To understand why your brain does this, we have to look at its origin. Your mind is an ancient survival tool built for a world that disappeared a long time ago. Hidden inside is a threat simulation mechanism, primitive software written specifically to anticipate deadly physical predators. Early humans needed the ability to obsess over worst-case scenarios. If you didn't assume every rustle was a threat, you didn't survive. Here is the modern biological glitch. Your amygdala cannot distinguish between a literal life-or-death physical threat and the imagined threat of social rejection. This cycle of overthinking represents outdated survival software running on modern hardware, mistaking social friction for a life-threatening predator. Now, drop that ancient wiring into the modern digital environment. We navigate an unnatural landscape that pushes our threat detection software past its breaking point. The endless scroll of social media injects thousands of micro-threats directly into the brain. We absorb impossible social comparisons on a loop. This animation shows the brain's attempt to process an impossible volume of data, frantically searching for dangers where none exist. When the input volume exceeds its processing capacity, the system locks down into a state of paralysis. This systemic overload reaches its height at night, when silence removes the distractions that usually keep these thoughts at bay. Our devices have weaponized our own evolutionary biology, leaving us isolated in a crowded digital world, which brings us back to 3 a.m. The emotional tension is peaking, and the self-doubt feels heavy and absolute. But there is a psychological truth that shatters this tension. The terrifying problems you are currently simulating are entirely fake. When you label these racing thoughts as a biological misfire, you begin to sever the feedback loop between your mind and your body. By identifying the panic as an error in the system, you deprive the simulation of the emotional fuel it needs to survive. Your brain is simply acting as the architect of imaginary problems. Recognizing that is the crucial first step to dismantling the structure. You cannot solve an imaginary problem using the same frantic logic that created it. The mental simulation must be recognized and rejected entirely. To do this, you use a specific psychological technique. You become the observer. You learn to step outside the mental loop rather than fighting inside it. This diagram illustrates the practice. You watch the terrifying thoughts pass through your mind without actively engaging or reacting to them. By choosing not to engage with the false alarms, the ancient evolutionary threat system is finally forced to power down. Because the mind is the architect, we ultimately hold the power to rewrite the blueprints. Step out of the imaginary horrors of the future. Exhale, let the illusion fade, and reclaim the absolute peace of the present moment.